As the moon casts a sinister glow on the quiet streets of the town of Groensveld, the air thickened with an unsettling tension, for a young girl named Tanja Groen was about to walk into a mystery that would baffle and haunt the town for decades. On the night of Tuesday, August 31st, 1993, Tanja Groen was on her way back from a climactic initiation party held at the Circumflex Student Society de Groensveld, where she was staying. But on that night, the moon cast a shadow that dragged her down into an abyss, her body never to be seen, and her voice never to be heard again. The case of Tanja Groen is probably one of the most mysterious cold cases that are still unsolved in the Netherlands today. Born in Schagen on the 23rd of June 1975, Tanja Groen was a Dutch girl who disappeared mysteriously on her way back near Maastricht. The students and the attendees reported that Tanja was wearing blue jeans with a pink t-shirt which had 020 Tanja embedded on the back, a gray sweater, a dark blue sports jacket, and black shoes with silver clips in her hair when she attended the climactic initiation party at the Circumflex Student Society. The parents reported to the police that Tanja had called her mother around 7:30 to 7:50 p.m. when she was in Schagen. In that conversation, she casually talked with her mother about her busy schedule, and she said she would meet them the weekend after. But who knew that this was the last time they were talking to each other before a tragic turn of events consumed her? Tanja's disappearance did not come to light until 3 days later, when her parents got really worried by their daughter's sudden unresponsiveness towards their calls and messages. Worried that Tanja had an accident on her way to her parents' home as she had to visit them on Friday, the parents rang up the landlord of Tanja. But the landlord replied with the news that Tanja had not returned for 3 days. She wasn't home. Her bag was still here. Search parties and police detectives got active instantly and initiated an investigation after the news, but they found no clues, not even the slightest trace of what had happened and how Tanja just vanished into thin air. The only thing that the authorities noticed was the unsafe and dark passage from the center of Maastricht to the village of Groensveld, where Tanja was headed towards her initiation. It was a dark and scary path, which was the most convenient for any sort of crime. Students also expressed their concerns to the police and authorities about the unsafe route they took. Whether you go along the Maas River via a cycle path along the highway or via a path along the A2, there are dark, unlit sections. During the day, you wouldn't notice. But the first time I cycled along that road at night, I pedaled very fast. We've also become very scared now. At first, the police suspected infamous convicted murderers already on the police's watch list, such as Willem S., deceased, who had carried out similar crimes and kidnappings before Tanja's disappearance and even lived near the campsite where Tanja and her parents often visited, marking Willem as a prime suspect. However, no evidence has been found since the claims that have linked the suspect to the vanishing of Tanja Groen. According to the police, Tanja's disappearance was suspected foul play as there were no clues or traces to Tanja or her location. According to the police spokesperson, "We seriously consider as no trace of her has been found yet, and also based on statements from her parents and fellow students." Her mother further stated that they believed that Tanja couldn't have gone anywhere on her own as she had no relations at the time or in her past. Moreover, she was quite sincere and passionate about her studies as she was studying in her first year of health sciences at Maastricht University. You can assume that Tanja was a serious student who always kept her appointments. She seemed to have no reason to stay away, no broken relationships, no problems with her studies. In an interview with the Dutch newspaper Algemeen Dagblad, her colleagues also stated that Tanja is a quiet girl. She doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, very shy, not someone who would do something strange. Although the police were kept on their toes during all these years, they couldn't find anything worthwhile in their investigation, and that's how days turned into weeks, weeks turned into years, and years turned into decades. But the mystery became a dead end. In 2012, a diver tipped the police off that he spotted a bicycle in the Maas River, and in hopes of having a clue in the case, the authorities investigated it, only to find that the bicycle was someone else's. Later, in 2014, a hiker discovered some bones abandoned in a field near Groensveld, close to where Tanja lived. However, the DNA test carried out by the Dutch Forensic Institute revealed that the bones did not belong to Tanja. In the fall of 2019, the Limburg police's cold case team had a hunch that they dug up a possible burial site for Tanja. This search mission was also in vain, as the police were unable to extract any proof of Tanja's body. In 2020, a crime report by Peter de Vries activated the search parties once again, as de Vries reported that Tanja Groen might be buried in an empty grave at the cemetery of the Catholic Church Oegum on De Bent in Maastricht. Murder placed Dutch student Tanja Groen, 18, in an empty grave search at Maastricht Cemetery. The police were quick to search around the cemetery for any unnamed graves and dug up a few graves as well, but they failed yet again to procure Tanja's whereabouts. The search for Tanja's body in the cemetery was a hard time for the parents as they found it nerve-wracking to watch the search. It has been more than 26 years since our daughter disappeared without a trace. The uncertainty about her fate has been unbearable for my husband, our child, and me all this time, Corey, Tanja's mother, commented in a statement. This has occupied us every day. We would be very relieved if this uncertainty comes to an end now, and we can bring our daughter home. However, despite an exhaustive search of the cemetery several times, the police didn't discover the body of Tanja Groen, much to the disappointment and sorrow of the parents. The police stated that the grave belonged to a man who didn't know Tanja or her family. The case was further stalled as there were no major leads after the cemetery search operation. When the disappearance of Tanja Groen emerged, many suspects and convicts were brought to light, and the first name on the list was Willem S., who even confessed to the crime while he was already serving in prison. But, as usual, the police couldn't find any sort of relation between the suspect and the disappearance. On April 2021, prominent crime investigator and journalist Peter de Vries launched the initiative Stichting de Goeden Tip, and the initiative put out a hefty amount of 1 million euros to support the police and investigators in continuing their investigations. This initiative revived these cold cases yet again, and motivated the police and the investigators to look into the Tanja Groen case once again. The case was further moved forward when Peter van Keupen, a legal psychologist by profession, identified 3 possible burial spots for Tanja Groen in case of murder. He pointed out the locations of those spots, which were Strabreksheid, Geldrop, and Brabant, and all of these spots were close to Groensveld. Unfortunately, the authorities were unable to find Tanja's body in those spots as well. However, a firm hope was kindled when the police and the judiciary in Belgium and the Netherlands started the investigation of whether the serial mass murderer Marc Dutroux was also involved in the disappearance of Tanja Groen. The links started to converge one by one, as the disappearance of Tanja Groen resembled a lot of the patterns of Dutroux's crimes. On April 29, 2024, the Netherlands Forensic Institute disclosed that they were going to compare the DNAs from the Dutroux case with those acquired from Tanja Groen's case. But after countless tips and leads proved to be dead ends, the Peter de Vries Foundation declared in December 2022 that the €1 million reward allocated for the Tanja Groen case did not lead to any vital leads with a satisfactory outcome. Thus, the foundation removed the reward from the Tanja Groen case, which was then utilized to solve 4 other cold cases from the state archives. The sudden disappearance of Tanja Groen is a mysterious case that has been the talk of the town since the 1990s, and it is a permanent mark in the town's crime history as the case went cold without being solved for more than 3 decades. Although the police and crime journalists like the famous Peter de Vries collaborated actively to work on any leads or pointers that came their way regarding the case, they were unable to decipher the mystery clouding where Tanja Groen is and how she vanished so silently on that quiet night of 1993.